Hello and welcome back to Warhammer. My name is Eric.
I'm Mark. Hey.
Joining us today is James.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Today is it's been a minute since we've done a release, but today we're gonna do something a little different.
Yeah. Today might seem a little strange to be over 100 episodes deep and then finally release an episode called What is 40K? Seems a little late.
Sure.
But today we're actually going to tell you
bit.
what 40K is, unlike all the other stuff where we just ramble and yell at each other.
I thought for the past 2 years we've been trying to explain what 40K
No.
is.
This is the first time we're actually going to tell people what 40K actually is.
Have I been doing?
I don't know, man. We all wonder that. We all
Diving deep into that lore.
Yikes.
Diving deep.
So this episode's going to be for people who know pretty much next to nothing about 40K lore. We're going to kind of hit some of the key features of 40K, some of the key factions, just kind of keep it brief and just hit the highlights. Hopefully we can snag new people by talking about the cool things that 40K has to offer. So we're going to start off reading this awesome quote. This pretty much sums up a lot of 40K. Eric, if you want to read it.
Sure. It is the eve of the 41st. It is the 41st millennium. For more than 100 centuries, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the master of mankind by the will of the gods, and a master of 1,000,000 worlds by the might of his inexhaustible armies. He is a rotting carcass, writhing invisibly with power from the dark age of technology. He is the carrion lord of the Imperium, for whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day, so that he may never truly die. Yet even in his deathless state, the Emperor continues his eternal vigilance. Mighty battle fleets cross the demon-infested miasma of the warp, the only route between distant stars, their way lit by the Astronomicon, the psychic manifestation of the Emperor's will. Vast armies give battle in his name on uncounted worlds. Greatest amongst his soldiers are the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, bioengineered super warriors. Their comrades in arms are Legion, the Imperial Guard, and countless planetary defense forces, the ever-vigilant Inquisition, and the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, to name only a few. But for all their multitudes, they are barely enough to hold off the ever-present threat from aliens, heretics, mutants, and worse. To be a man in such times is to be one amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. These are the tales of those times. Forget the power of technology and science, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for in the grim dark future there is only war. There is no peace amongst the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of thirsting gods.
Sounds like a great place.
So that's like a really well-known quote.
Yeah, it leads off almost every book that has Imperium stuff in it.
Yeah.
Which is like the main faction, I guess. Oh, light just went out. That's weird.
No. It's the one you were
Sorry, I forgot
I
to pay the
know.
power bell.
Oh, okay. Well,
Again? James.
okay. So, what is 40K? Warhammer 40K. Warhammer 40K is a fictional universe based in the year 40,000. So it is based off like our current timeline, roughly.
Supposedly
Kinda.
everything that happens in our world has
Yeah.
happened in this world.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what would you call that? This isn't a completely made up setting. It is, but like it's not like Lord
It's
of
like
the
a
Rings where it's-
realistic fiction.
Yeah,
right, where what?
I don't know if they have a term for that, but maybe we should have researched on that anyways.
Well, I didn't.
So created by Games Workshop over 30 years ago and to this day is still being expanded. Yeah, so 40K has this huge amount of just different things that happen in 40K. It's been around for 30 years. It's constantly being expanded. Like we just even got a whole bunch of new stuff. Every week we get new stuff. It's crazy. It's always getting more and more to learn. So 40K is a dark, gothic, and gritty sci-fi horror setting where every race is fighting for its own survival. In that quote, it talks a lot about like war and like how everyone's just there's no hope there. Don't trust science or technology.
Yeah, they perform war on uncounted planets and who knows how many, and it's just constant. Every resource is fed into just the
Just
machine
the war
of
machine.
war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really dark, some of it. Like, it's not really a child friendly. There's not a lot of happy endings. There's not a lot of optimism going on here. About the best you can hope for is, when you go to war, you just lose 4 of your limbs, but you still have your heart. So
That doesn't mean that those nice things don't exist,
No.
but it's not the focus of the setting.
yeah. Another really cool thing about 40K is it's gothic kind of styling. Like, when you look at their artwork, it's this gritty gothic look. They have crazy churches that are just covered in skulls, and everything just has this gothic-esque look to it. Even when you look at, like, they have a faction called Space Marines who are wearing power armor. Some of their power armor actually looks like medieval knight armor. Like, it's just...
Yeah, it goes for that aesthetic of like almost that medieval. It's like a future medieval. Almost.
Yeah.
Like wrap those two things together.
Yeah. It's also great for a horror setting. We don't see a lot of it, but really it's perfect. Like, whether it's cosmic horror or horror of being eaten alive by an alien, like it has a bunch of different types of horror in this setting. It's a dark place.
Yeah, there's definitely not as much horror as there is just like the cool war fighting that people seem to gravitate to, but
There are books of horror.
yeah, there's
though,
an
right?
entire section in the Black Library
Yeah.
just devoted to the horror genre.
Yeah. There's a lot of really fucking creepy things in 40K that you do not want chasing you. Like a good example, there's Necron, which is like a robot skeleton, essentially. There's way more lore to it than that. But some of them get infected with like this flare virus where they start to like crave blood and flaying things, essentially.
And they'll cut your skin off and then wear it themselves.
Like, just imagine being chased by that. Like, you could get like a really fucking crazy horror vibe going with like that. This crazy robot's trying to hunt you for your flesh. It's nice. It's real nice. 40K is no Star Trek where peace and reason and enlightenment prevail. Like,
that's kind of why it's not like a true sci-fi.
yeah.
Star Trek is a true science fiction. Everything has like a reason and an explanation behind it.
Yeah.
But that's not the case in 40K, where there are unimaginable and unexplained things.
Yeah, like I think the definition is like hard science fiction versus soft science fiction, and 40K falls into the more soft.
Yeah.
Because there's in like Star Trek, for example, they explain, okay, warp fields are something that was actually theorized by scientists in the real world.
Yeah.
That you can create this warp field to travel fast. Whereas in 40K, warp fields are different. And it's more like magic.
Yeah.
So it's a very different vibe
Yeah.
where it's this soft science fiction. A lot more is
Yeah.
possible that way
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. And they try not to throw around clunky words, like throw in the
Hyperspanner.
yeah.
Google.
Yeah. They usually don't throw in
Shoot.
a lot of words.
We're gonna get sued for that.
The hyperspanner boogle.
There we go.
Yeah, like, so there's quite a bit of the way they describe like most of their fancy stuff, instead of coming up with like cosmic spanner or whatever, they come up with like high gothic terms for stuff, which just like goes like, it's weird. Everything's backwards in 40K. It's not Star Trek where everything's progressing forward with technology. In fact, technology in 40K for most factions either stay stagnant or they degrade.
Yeah.
And this is another crazy thing I like about 40K.
Yeah, the quote that we read earlier says, "Forget the power of technology and science, for so much of it has been forgotten, never to be relearned." Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's...
Yeah. Yeah, like in 40K, people will find 10,000-year-old technology, be like, this is crazy. This is the most advanced thing we've ever seen.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's 10,000 years old, you know? Like,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
not innovating and
Yeah.
pushing for new things. So.
yeah. Another really crazy thing is like Enlightenment, not a thing in 40K. There's like Star Trek, everyone works together, everything's good, people work towards something, people have a good understanding of their universe and their place in it. In 40K, it's all just chaos. Like, everyone has their own gods that they worship, and each god is just as viable as another god over here. There is no cosmic truth necessarily in 40K, or like there is no
You're
ruling.
sounding an awful lot like a heretic right now.
Well, that's that's that.
Yeah, no, that's very true though. Like this Enlightenment, everything is kind of viewed under the shroud of tradition, and backwards looking religious practices.
Even though they're smart enough to make teleportation technology, they still like to light candles before they use it. Like, to set a mood. And
not only that, but it might be in like it's written in the book on how you have to teleport is you have to light this candle, even though it has no bearing on the actual thing. You're stuck in this regime of religious practice and traditions. So.
Something that you just do not see in Star Trek. 40K is also not like Star Wars, where there's a clean divide between the forces of good and evil. 40K at best, there's shades of gray for like good guys, and even them, it's like.
But most likely, everyone is just evil.
Most likely, which I really like. It's nice and good when everything is in its place and, good always wins. But I don't know. It just feels more realistic when everybody gets fucked over at the end of the day. Seems like that's...
Well, the other thing, too, is just more like the universe is so dark. Like, everything is coming to kill you all the time. Like,
all
everyone.
The time.
So the idea is that there's not necessarily a lot of room for people being good people. It's just like you're trying to survive, and everyone is just trying to survive.
And you're going to have to make hard choices to survive.
Yeah, and it's more just like that. It's I wouldn't say that everyone is evil. It's more just that people just do what they have to all the time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah, so that's something that it catches a lot of people off guard when they come into setting new. They look at like the poster boys of the game, which are called Space Marines, and they think they're these good guys, these noble heroes, these valiant warriors. And while they might be that, they're also these cannibals. Yeah, they also
mutilators.
Yeah,
they drink blood.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like they have foul practices. They kidnap children and force them into psycho-indoctrination. And like so.
And even in war, the way they do war, it's like
it's
incredible violence.
Yeah, savage.
Yeah, like it's not just your standard war. There's
stories. No mercy.
Exactly. There's stories of like guardsmen coming across a battlefield after Space Marines have been there, and there's just blood and body parts everywhere. It's a mess. It's not this clean precision. So yeah, like even the poster boys are these like super hyper violent, brutal, not good cannibals. So that's fun. One of the main taglines in 40K is "There is no peace amongst the stars, only war." The setting of 40K is a hopeless one. That no matter what you do, you are just one of countless trillions, all clamoring for their own piece of the pie. But no matter what you do, at the end of the road is death. No one's safe from that. And with death comes the hunger of the Chaos Gods and the Warp, waiting to devour your soul. We'll talk a little bit more about the Warp real quick, because it's another unique thing about Warhammer 40K, is the Warp is a parallel dimension where you can actually draw power from. And things you do in our reality feeds into that, into the Warp, and can create even consciousnesses. So there are actual like gods that are, when you die, they're going to feed on your soul. So that's nice to know that no matter what you do in life, your soul is going to get devoured.
Yeah, and I don't think like a lot of people in the universe have that knowledge, but it's kind of something for us. Like no matter how good, even if you found the space to be like a true altruistic, like good person, in the end, like your reward for doing that is being consumed by an angry, hungry god.
Yeah, so that's
who you did not worship at all during your life. So yeah, there's not a lot of room for good people in 40K.
Yeah, so that's always fun. And yeah, like the galaxy, because of it, it's in war all the time. Everyone's fighting everyone all the time. So everything in 40K is also dialed up to 11. The authors are constantly walking the line of writing the most badass things they can think of without it turning into something too goofy, which every now and again does happen. But for the most part, like everything in 40K is just taken to the next level. Everything is bigger. Everything is stronger. Even their weapons are more brutal, you know, like
a chainsword.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just like a tooth-tipped chainsword meant to just rip through people.
Yeah.
Like it sprays as much blood as possible, and
That's part of the appeal.
yeah.
It's part of the
One of the craziest things I'll probably never forget is a story of this guy, like super engineered this thing called a Primarch.
Yeah.
And he had 3 grenades in his hand, and he punches like through the window of a tank and holds on to these grenades as they all explode in his hand, killing everyone in the tank, and then he just pulls his hand out and his hand is fine.
That's nice. That's what you want. Yeah, there's some like crazy powerful beings in 40K that, they're almost superhero level. Everything's dialed up.
Yeah, it's almost like imagine what superhero movies would be if like none of them were good guys.
Yeah, if they didn't have the same morals and ethics that they govern their
They're
current
not here to
lives.
protect you. They're here to do what they want.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but that's a good. Yeah, it's imagine people who can do things that we can't, and then put them into this setting of no hope, no goodness, and what do they do with their gifts? Yeah, they wage war.
One of my favorite things that have been dialed up to 11 is in the setting they have. It's called the Ecclesiarchy. It's the official religion of the Imperium, and they
Which
worship
is
the
humanity,
Emperor.
right?
Yeah, and they worship the Emperor. But on one planet, they have this one church that they built, and picture the Catholic Church. Everything's just extravagant. They build these grand citadels for worship and stuff, and one of them. That they built was 600 square miles. That's how big the footprint of the building was. And then it was so tall that it actually left the planet's atmosphere and entered space. Like everything is just so big. And they built that in like 20 years or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Everything is just so big. Everything's dialed up to 11. It's one of the things that I really like because it's all just ridiculous, really. You can't really try to rationalize it. Their spaceships are so big, you can't rationalize how they made those, or like everything's crazy. I love it.
Yeah, and the thing about it too is that while the setting is quite serious, there's an element of it not being serious at the same time.
There's an element of
There's
comedy.
that fine line,
whereas sometimes you look at it and you're like, well, the line I just read was kind of cool and badass, and this line just seems ridiculous and makes me want to scratch my head.
Yeah, every now and again you get those ones as well, but that's the way she goes. So most sci-fi settings hold science and reason as the ultimate truths, but in 40K, almost every faction is highly religious, zealous, and xenophobic, or just straight up backwards and weird, just weird stuff. There are some incredibly powerful entities in 40K that are about as close to a god as one can actually get, and they demand worship. So a lot of these races actually do worship their gods, which are, for all intents and purposes, pretty much gods.
Yeah. I think a big difference is that a lot of times in settings you'll see a metaphorical representation of gods, or a god that doesn't intervene and doesn't participate in like the lives of their worshippers. But in 40K it's very different. Their gods are very much active in the lives of their mortals.
Yeah, and it's such a weird thing when they have the ability to fly from planet to planet, but they're still worshiping like gods by sacrificing people to them and like doing backwards practices. That it's just like, really, like
you say the proper words, in like when you're doing this sacrifice, and then go
whenever you turn on your car, you have to spray it with holy oil.
Yeah. Even one of the more like in the setting, the Tau, one of the more scientifically like reasonable
philosophizers and
but even
philosophizers.
I don't think so.
Philosophers.
There it is.
No, philosophizers.
Philosophizers. But even them, like they turn their philosophy into a religion, pretty much. Like the greater good is essentially a religion. People kind of
they put their faith in it and they believe it, and You know, it has power because they all believe it.
Yeah. So, and that's another thing too. Like, their worship in this universe actually does have an effect too. You worship the blood god of Khorne by killing people. He actually gets more powerful. Your worship is actually a valid thing.
Yeah.
And it's one really crazy, weird thing where you're just trying to put together futuristic stuff. Like they're talking about power swords and how cool they are. And then all of a sudden there's actual chaos gods out there that are trying to eat your soul, so you have to worship them so you don't. And there's no way around it. Technology is not your savior in this universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the be-all, end-all.
Mm-hmm.
There is no Deus Machina or whatever trying to bring everything closer to perfection. It's all just fucking chaos everywhere. 40K is a setting where countless stories can be told. Stories from a lowly factory worker all the way up to a massive star system spanning 100-year-long war. Like 40K, it's not just one little story and you're following a main character through the galaxy. It's about an infinite amount of stories. And even though we've been talking a lot about like how brutal and like violent 40K is, there's also stories about just simple factory workers or other type of people that are just going day to day trying to survive and have nothing to, they might not even know about space or aliens or anything like that. They might not be educated in any way. There's all manner of stories that you can tell in 40K.
Yeah, the nice thing too is that like the universe is so big and there's so many different worlds. You can pretty much come up with a world that looks like almost anything you want. You could come up with a world that's all like progressive and futuristic and lovely and everything is amazing, and then completely throw that into pieces. Or the other way around, you could like the universe is so big, there isn't really a story that can't be inside of it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, which is really nice for people who like to write. Like one of the big draws for me for 40K is coming up with my own stories that then I can try to insert seamlessly into this massive setting. In a perfect world, if 40K did have a setting or like a story, it would be about the survival of the Imperium of Man, as it's about I don't know, I messed up that line. That's fine. That's cool. It's also about 6 Xenos races. So the main focus is, most people relate to humanity, the Imperium of Man, but there's also other factions and they have their own storylines. They're not just bad guys. They're for the Imperium. Like, the Imperium's not my favorite faction. I like other factions like just as much, and they have lots of lore for them and reasons why I like them.
Yeah, they're not. It's not like you can't view it as like, oh, the Imperium, humanity. There's your protagonist. There's like your good guys struggling to survive, and everyone else is just set against them. That's just not.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is the protagonist of their own story, and they view every single other thing as their aggressor.
Yeah.
And as the person trying to stop them from surviving, really.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is like all of the different cultures are usually described from the perspective of the Imperium. Like that's the general way that it is presented. When you read like a story, it's almost like historical archives taken by the Imperium about other places. Like there are obviously some exceptions to that, but from the most part, it's portrayed as if you were a human reading about the universe.
Yeah, a lot of the information is shared very human-centric, and it's from their perspective.
Yeah.
That might be why people feel like they're the protagonist, but it's really just the way the information is communicated.
Sure.
Because it kind of makes sense. Like if you are a human, if you're listening to this, probably.
One can hope.
I assume. And so like it just makes it easier to like relate to the rest of the universe when it's presented as if you are what you are. So that's just the way they communicate to you.
Really like it because once you like shed that veil that like, oh, everything is done through the human perspective, then you take a step back and look at how the information is giving to you, and you're like, oh my God, like humanity is not nice. Like they're super racist, they're super xenophobic, like their naming conventions follow like weird, like they call an entire people fish people and like super offensive, and it can show you that you take a step back and you understand that like, oh, even the guys that I thought I was like relating to are actually really bad people, and they're terrible.
Yeah, you don't want to find too much in common with anyone in 40K.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you're writing your own story, then you can be a perfect person.
One really cool thing about 40K too is it thrives on mystery and not spelling out every detail. Whether this once again goes back to even the way they deal with technology, like they surround it in this mystery. They don't actually know how it works. They just know if they do this, this, and this, it will work. Mm-hmm. But even bigger things in the galaxy, like they set up these huge mysteries that you're supposed to come to your own conclusions on, and
they leave it very open-ended.
Very open-ended, yeah. And I love it. I love the mysteries. I love being able to have conversations with people about, like, oh, what do you think the Satan on, or the Void Dragon on Mars is? Is it Satan? Is it something else? Like, they set up these huge things where it just allows you to really just do whatever you want with that idea. And it's not right, it's not wrong, it's just, yeah. So that's kind of what 40K is. It's a grimdark setting where religion is a very real thing. It's a science fiction setting, soft version, I guess is what you call it. Yeah. Like there's spaceships that are flying around, there's lasers, there's all that kind of cool stuff. But then there's also this weird backwards medieval vibe to all of it, you know?
Yeah, like just to go back to what you had mentioned before, though, about like it's very open-ended. Like the original story was written in almost like a D&D style.
Yeah.
So if you know anything about D&D, it's kind of, they allow a lot of room for you to insert your own stories or conclusions. And so it's the whole thing is still has a little bit of that vibe where things are quite open-ended.
Yeah.
They want you to, since it is like mainly about selling models, they allow you to insert what you do into the universe as much as possible. And so that's kind of a cool aspect of it, is that whatever you want to contribute to being a part of the general story, you can you're allowed to do that and fill that space.
Yeah, well. Like I just feel like with other settings it's not as open for that. Like, no. I could never imagine writing anything in the Lord of the Rings setting. You know, like it just, I don't think I could do it justice. It's way more restrictive. You can't just add stuff to it. Same with even like Star Wars, which is a lot bigger, and people have written whole books. You know, I don't know. It just seems way more open for it.
Well, I think one of the big differences between those stories and 40K is that in those stories there's very obviously central characters that live in these universes that they've made, and there's very popular ones, and you see how they interact, whereas in 40K the story of the factory worker is just as like maybe not important, but it's just as real as the story of the Space Marine or the story of a human who governs an entire planet. And I think that's like a big difference, is you can write from any perspective and have it be just as crazy and amped up. Whereas you can't really write the perspective of a peasant in Lord of the Rings. It just, you're like, cool, you worked the farm for 40 years and then you died.
Well, I think part of it too is the way the rules of the worlds are written. So, for example, Star Trek, you can't deviate from the idea that they're a post-scarcity, post-money economy. Like that's just a central thing to it. Everyone can basically do what they want, and if that doesn't work in your head, it doesn't work for me either. But the idea is that you can't mess with that, and that's quite a constraining rule. Whereas in 40K, pretty much you can invent a planet that pretty much can fit within the universe quite easily, as long as it doesn't have galactic scale consequences, and that be perfectly valid within the rules of the universe. So it's quite flexible.
Yeah. As one fun thing too is like it is on a galactic level, which means you can have some pretty, while you might not have a galactic changing events, you quite often, and it's quite acceptable, can write like you've blown up star systems, or you've gone on this create and conquered 500 worlds or something like that. You can go quite big with the scale of things and still not have it like change the galaxy. So it's cool. Yeah, you can do a lot of crazy stuff with it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest appeals of this universe for most people that are in it, is that you can do so much with it without breaking it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of the what is 40K. We're going to talk a bit about like the lore. So the lore is the story behind it. It's the actual, if there was a plot. So 40K has a vast and deep lore, and it's been written by many different authors over 30 years. The lore has undergone plenty of changes and additions over the years, but there have been some parts of the lore that are integral to the setting and probably won't ever change. So we're gonna talk about, there's a bunch of different factions that you can play or read about or learn about, and the biggest one is the Imperium of Man. Humanity, over the course of thousands of years, have created a galactic empire held together only by the blood of its armies, led by the God Emperor, a nigh all-powerful figure who sacrificed himself in a great battle to ward off the forces of chaos. He now sits immobile in a corpse-like state on Terra, while his high lords run the Imperium. So even humanity, they have this godlike being that they worship, and at one point he actually sacrificed himself. It's very like Jesus-esque almost. So the rest of the race can survive, and now, they worship him as a god. And like when he was around, he had crazy powerful powers, like he could shoot lightning bolts out of his fingers.
Just like Jesus.
Just like Jesus. If you're not manifesting fishes, you're shooting lightning bolts at your
That's what I second.
Yeah.
Something or other. And lo doth the lightning bolts flow through him.
Yeah. The Imperium is besieged on all sides by heretics and Xenos. Only through the use of its unlimited numbers are they able to survive. Millions of regular humans, the Imperial Guard, die every day, and where the fighting is the thickest can be found the Adeptus Astartes, super soldiers beyond comparison. To be a part of the Imperium is to be one of countless trillions of humans living in the harshest, cruelest, and most dangerous times imaginable. There's no peace amongst the stars for you. So in the Imperium, it's this repressive regime where literally they have to control every area of everyone's life in order to survive. If you don't have everyone making ammunition or whatever the need may be at the moment, the aliens are just going to come and override your planet. So
yeah, and while that probably is the reality, like it might not, but even if that's not the truth, that's the story they tell you.
Yeah.
Even if you have a planet that has never, like, it's so far outside of any alien's path, they're still going to feed you this rhetoric to control your life.
Yeah.
So it's not like, even if the threat isn't really there, you're still threatened by it, right?
Yeah.
And so you're lied to and everything. So it's not like
the Imperium's not a good place.
It's not nice.
No.
There's not a lot of room for nice things in the Imperium.
Yeah. And they just have armies of billions and trillions of people that just march across the star defending the Imperium. And chances are good, you'll end up there and you'll die there. So that's fun.
Chances are very good. No matter what you do, you're some cog in the machine that allows the humanity's war to be waged.
Yeah. So we'll talk about up next, chaos. So this is a kind of catch-all because chaos can actually affect everything, not just humanity. So not everyone is happy with their lot in life, and many have fallen to the whispers of the warp gods, servitude in return for power. In a parallel dimension called the warp, the emotions of mortals have birthed and fueled 4 destructive chaos entities. Nurgle, Khorne, Tzeentch, and Slaanesh use their mortal servants as well as their demons to raid and destabilize real space. No race is safe from their seduction or destruction, and their ultimate goal is to feast on the souls of mortals. So there's this alternate reality called the warp, and we've actually, with our emotions, birthed different gods in that reality that have created personalities, and usually they're not good ones. They're the gods of destruction or decay, or it's usually not good things. So you can actually end up worshiping these gods, and they can give you power and stuff, and that might be a way out of, if you're just that lowly factory worker, that might be your way off the line. So it happens quite often where, just whole planets will rebel and fall to chaos, and instead of being under the thumb of the Imperium, they'll try to at least maybe.
What they feel is like a way out to gain freedom as they
Yeah.
rebel against their captor, only to realize maybe later and maybe never realize that they're
They're now
just a
pawns.
slave to
Yeah.
the chaos now. And so like even
Chaos,
your freedom isn't freedom.
No.
chaos is like a weird word because like it's what they call it, but it's not necessarily chaos. It's more like a corruption or like
Sure.
the way it usually seems to described is not necessarily like it's some sort of like randomness. It's more just like there's these forces of evil that corrupt things. That's, like these things are more pure evil than everything else, it seems.
Yeah. So up next we have the race called the Eldar. So this is an alien race, a now dying race. The Eldar or Eldari at one time held sway over the vast majority of the galaxy for millions of years. Their own hubris led to their own downfall, creating a massive hole in the galaxy to the warp. They struggle to survive using their deep knowledge of warpcraft and innate psychic abilities to read the future and steer their world-sized spacecraft safely around the galaxy. So this race, they actually birthed one of these chaos gods, and during that, some people were like naysayers, like, well, no, we can't do this, and they fled. While others, they just stood around and kept birthing this god, and eventually a warp ripped a hole in space and sucked a bunch of the Eldar in and devoured their souls, and now the rest are just fleeing from this chaos god that they created. But at the same time, they're still, being harassed by the Imperium or other aliens out there. They're still trying
they still have their own threats that they need to fight against, and people that only want to see their destruction. So and they are like a dying race, like they are on the back foot, barely holding on to survival. So it's like for them it's a very sad story, but it's one of those like, well, you brought it on yourself. And
Sure. And just for like aesthetic wise, they're very like they're elves.
They're essentially space elves for sure. Some cool things about them though is, so if you have the ability to tap into the warp, which is that energy that you can pull off of, you're called a psyker. So every Eldar is a psyker. So they can all pull energy from the warp, which means some of them have the ability to see into the future, while others can move their body really quick through warp energy or whatever they may be. It's a really cool thing when the whole race is this incredibly psychic race.
well, they effectively also live in this alternate dimension, and how they communicate with each other isn't just through our mundane means. They also use like psychic connections, and psychic emotions and things that they just can't, that we could never experience. So
and even like when they build spaceships or whatever, they use a solidified warp energy called Wraithbone. So even their buildings and their technologies and stuff,
it all resonates psychically.
Exactly. It's all tied in. So it's really cool. If you kind of like the warp tying in, if you like psychic abilities, and if you even like the story of like, a dying race, fighting its last little kicks before it dies type thing. So when the Eldari created that chaos god, half the Eldar kind of continued on doing crazy things, and half stopped and kind of fled. So the half that continued to kind of do crazy things are called the Dark Eldar.
So it's a subsect of the Eldari race, and the Drukari live life very differently from their brethren. Instead of hiding from the chaos god Slanesh or She Who Thirsts, they have found a way to sacrifice the souls of others to spare their own. So they live in a city in the space between real space and the warp, and the city extends to all corners of the galaxy.
It's a weird thing to
to conceptualize. Yeah, that sentence doesn't really do it justice. But
it's just like a weird kind of in between place. Like it's almost like in between dimensions. Is kind of the way it is.
Yeah.
They are some of the oldest living beings in the galaxy, with a special few claiming to have lived for over 14,000 years. Yeah.
That's an old guy.
That's an old guy.
Yeah, that's like most of these races are very, very old, but these are individual beings who have claimed to have been alive for 14,000 years.
Which that's a long time. But yeah, the one cool thing that they do is kind of, so their souls are going to be eaten. Their soul is constantly being eaten, the Dark Eldar. So instead, they just go around the galaxy collecting whatever poor unfortunate souls they can find, and they end up pretty much sacrificing those souls to Slaanesh to save their own, or they absorb the souls, kind of more likely, or more how it actually happens. So they end up torturing people and inflicting pain on them, anything to kind of get that soul resonating really well, and then they kind of just absorb it, and they absorb that life force so they can survive. So instead of fleeing from the chaos god they created, they kind of just sidestepping, maybe, I don't know, feed it, not really.
They found a way
They
to
found a way
live
to,
without having to like change their style of life.
Yeah, because they still want to be
evil.
Yeah.
So the next we have is Necron. So older than any other race, the Necron have cast off their biological bodies and replaced them with sinister bodies of living metal. They care nothing for life or what they consider the lesser races. They have slept for 60 million years, protected by computers, programs, and constructs far beyond our comprehension. As they awaken into this galaxy torn apart by war, they have begun to reclaim what they see as rightfully theirs, obliterating those that refuse to comply.
It's nice.
This is like just a classic, like, eradicating life race, you know.
They look like Terminators.
Yeah, views everything else as lesser than them and not as good, and so, you know, they're the only ones that deserve to rule. And
but they have personality too. So they're like, most of them don't, but they do have like some personality. They want to wipe out all life, but they have like a little bit of personality when doing it. Yeah.
Some might like to flay some like to flame. I don't know. How would they like to do it?
Yeah. Like, how do you prefer to get rid of life forms?
Life in the galaxy.
Yeah. We all have our way.
We all have our preferred method.
I prefer just annihilating planets wholesale one at a time. But these guys, they don't always do that. Sometimes they have other plans.
I like melting the polar ice caps and drowning the population.
That's a good one too. That's a good one too.
My go-to.
So the next one we have are Orcs. So
sorry, can we go back to Necron for 1 second?
Sure.
So even Necron, they have captured these entities called Satan, which are like real space entities that used to feed on suns, and they have like the ability to change reality around them. Essentially, they can create new things out of nothing, and they're these crazy powerful beings.
They're called masters of reality.
Yeah, like it's so hard to explain how they work because
we have no idea.
Yeah, 40K doesn't explain a lot of things, which is nice. Like it leaves you kind of trying to figure out. But even the Necron, like, even though there's these soulless warriors that just want to conquer the galaxy, even they have gods that some of them worship or they use, and more likely the case. But yeah, like it's fun. You gotta like all powerful beings,
especially when they're on your side.
Yeah.
Okay, now the Orc.
Yeah.
Okay, so most likely, so now we're gonna talk about Orcs.
Orcs.
It's classic. Most likely the evolution of the life form called the Krork, which is also a ridiculously old thing. The Orc race is simple to grasp, but how they live is impossible to understand. So all knowledge seems to be embedded deep within their DNA and only awakens in time of need. To further complicate things, this need is driven by whether or not they can find a good fight. Orcs are highly aggressive and have a strong warlike nature. And for the vast majority of orcs, they create no artistic marvels. They don't philosophize.
No
That's
philosophizers.
a real word.
It's not underlined.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Google Docs
okay.
says it's a real word.
I would. Yeah. Okay. All right. I concede.
So they don't create artistic marvels. They don't philosophize deep thoughts.
Wow.
Instead, they focus only on finding another fight or a snack or a beer,
Yeah.
or whatever, or a big gun or a fast vehicle. Like it's
Yeah.
very. Their needs are very like now based.
Yeah,
Like I want to
yeah.
do something right now, and I want to go fast right now, or I want to fight right now.
Yeah.
So very rarely do they set aside their own petty squabbles to fight toward a common goal. But when they do, the results are disastrous for anyone in their path.
Yeah.
If they can be united behind like some common goal and like
Yeah.
a common leader, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. There's a lot of them.
I read one line that said they're the most numerous life form in the galaxy,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure if I agree with that. It's either that or humans.
Sure.
Yeah, like that. The one I read that said it's the most common. It's a pretty old.
I could definitely see it
publication.
happen.
But yeah, I could see
Yeah.
it being there's more of them. They just are too busy fighting each other for the most part.
Yeah.
to
That's really their
do anything
motivation
else.
is they just like fighting. They just
Yeah.
think a bunch of rowdy teenage boys that just want to fight each other all day long. That's
Rowdy teenager boys that are 8 feet tall,
muscle
200 pounds
bound,
of muscle,
have access to weapons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I
It's all
No,
checking
no
out.
morals.
Yeah.
All they want to do is just chop things and shoot things.
It's nice.
Yeah.
So the Tau Empire, a young, idealistic, and naive upstart race. While only being starfaring for a short time, the Tau have created an empire not just for themselves, but also anyone willing to join them. Their main philosophy, the greater good, teaches them that through sacrifice and working together, a brighter and more prosperous future can be built. Not everyone is open to this idea, and the Tau are more than willing to engage in wars to eliminate threats using advanced technology and Xenos auxiliaries. But as they push further into the galaxy, their beliefs are tested, and compromises must be made for their advancement. Yeah.
These guys are all about like cool, futuristic technology. Kind of, they're like,
This is the sci-fi,
yeah,
like Star Trek
Battle
race.
suits, like
Yeah.
clean technology.
Everything makes sense
Yeah.
in what they do. Like their motto, their creed, whatever, the greater good is what they call it. Even that like makes sense to a certain degree, whereas
Yeah.
almost anything else you start poking holes, it's really easy. But the Tau is like supposed to be, if there was a good, it would be them.
Yeah, but even them,
Yeah.
not necessarily good. They have some dark things going on in order to control some of the races under them. But it's cool. So they give you a chance. Hey, you want to join the greater good? We got cookies. That whole spiel. And then if you say yes, great. Now you're a part of the smallest empire in the galaxy. Congratulations. Or if you say no, they'll probably just blast you into non-existence. So that's nice.
Until you say yes.
Until you say yes. So that's
or
fun.
you're gone.
Really building bright futures for people, I think, in the bombings.
Well, they really care about the
Yeah.
people that they're trying to subjugate into the greater good.
Yeah. Tyranids.
So this is the newest and probably largest threat that the galaxy has ever faced. The Tyranid race is extragalactic, hailing from beyond the great void of space. They have come to consume everything, whether this goal is only a portion of their aims or all they want is to feed is unknown. For communication with them is impossible. So they're led by the combined consciousness of all their alien minds, and they seek out planets to strip them of all life, like tendrils grasping through space.
Oh,
like a good way, if you watch other sci-fi, we've already used Star Trek as a comparison a couple times, but like they're kind of like the Borg in the way that they have a hive mind that
yeah,
they
and their mindset,
yeah, it's not necessarily that any individual has any individuality. It's that all of their minds together become this one big mind.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how these guys work too, except there's no mechanical stuff. It's all organic.
It's all biological.
They are bugs, essentially.
Massive space bugs.
Space bugs. You gotta like it. Yeah, and they literally they go to a planet, they strip it of all biomass, they just literally devour planets.
Yeah, they even consume rocks and metal
Yeah.
to be repurposed into their armor and weapons and stuff that
Yeah.
they grow. So
Yeah.
it's if ever there was an existential threat
Yeah.
in the galaxy, it would be the Tyranids.
Yeah. They're also the only thing that we know about outside of the Milky Way in 40K.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, we don't know where they came from. We don't know much about that. But
There's a
it is
lot of
an
theories,
interesting-
even that they came from our galaxy
Sure.
originally, and there's just as many out there that they didn't come from our galaxy.
Yeah.
So it's one of those open-ended things where you
Yeah.
get to pick
Yeah.
what you like, really.
yeah. So those are some of the main players, but there's also a bunch of minor Xenos, and you can even create your own alien race too if you wanted. Like, once again, the possibilities are just whatever your imagination is. We did a bunch of episodes on all the minor Xenos races that GW made, and I think it was like 150 different minor Xenos that they've made up.
Yeah.
And while some
of them might just be a one-liner.
Yep, but some of them have, quite a lot of different lore and their own motivations and how their technology works and all that kind of
and
stuff.
how they
So,
interact with other races, and
Yeah.
a little snippet of a culture that would be for them. So
Yeah.
there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So hopefully one of those races kind of interests you and you can go look more about it. But yeah, that's kind of the lore of 40K. It's just a bunch of these different alien races all interacting, usually in a violent way with each other, while worshiping their gods to try to kill other gods, being pawns in the great game. It's nice. It's real nice.
Nope.
No, it's perfect. It's a carefree world. You just got to wake up, fulfill your duties, and then at the end of your 18-hour day, you can have a nice 3-hour nap.
Yeah, and you get a bar of corpse starch.
Perfect. That's what you need. So 40K, it's been around for 30 years, and over 30 years, it's had a bunch of different types of ways to get engaged in 40K. From novels, like they apparently have over 500 published individual stories. I'm surprised that's not higher.
No?
No, I'm not. No, I am surprised it's not higher, but it's still a lot. 500 books is a lot of books. And they're still coming out with more and more and more.
But it's not just books.
Yeah,
Audio
there's audio
dramas,
books.
short stories. They're doing graphic novels.
Yeah, they even signed a deal with Marvel, and they're doing some actual comic books.
Yeah.
Like, there's all types of
They
book.
just 2 years ago started like a pre-teen focused some literacy there, and even that stuff, like I've read it. It's not bad, and
Yep.
so yeah, they're really trying to hit as many different ways, even just within the literature world of like sharing 40K. So
Yeah, and there's also like, so right now is a good time to be involved in the hobby, because even at this point, they're basically releasing weekly updates to stories and
probably.
stuff,
little
on their
snippets
websites.
of stories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you can, if you want to just, they even have something called the Regimental Standard, I believe is what it's called on the website.
Yeah.
So you can read like little shorts.
Yeah, it's like a news article
based
in 40K
Yeah.
that
So
you
there's-
can read.
It's like a piece of propaganda.
Yeah.
It's so good.
it's cool. It's well done.
Well,
And-
everything written by the Imperium is effectively propaganda.
Yeah. So like there's always new content, new information about the world being released. You can always like reading stuff. There's so much. You could like, I don't know if you have enough life
No,
to
honestly,
get through
you
all
don't,
of
like,
the content.
Yeah. I
Well,
don't know how you would get through it all.
You know what? Beyond even all their literature, there's currently 51 40K video games available, and the genres of those range from action to real-time strategy. They have tower defense games. They have collectible card games.
First-person shooters, third-person shooters.
Yeah, and the games are available for almost every platform, but they focus on PC and mobile
Seems to be.
platforms.
There's a couple games in here that are actually like amongst my all-time favorite games.
I was a huge fan of Space Marine.
Yeah, right? Like that's
think
one of
that's
my
what's-
favorite
Yeah,
games.
it's really good.
Even if it wasn't 40K, I'd love that game. But yeah, there's also music. Lots of people have started their own like heavy metal bands to sing about Korn and Slaughter and whatever. But
Not just heavy metal though. There's also anyone you could
I'm
produce
sure
any
there's
kind
everything.
of music.
Yeah. But it does seem to be there's definitely a lot of heavy metal 40K
Yeah.
stuff.
I think all you have to do
thrower.
is talk to Sam to
Yeah.
understand,
Oh,
to
God.
see the similarities between metal music and 40K.
Yeah.
But back in the early 90s, Games Workshop actually created their own music label called Warhammer Records.
Oh, yes.
I like to think of it's called Warhammer Records.
Of course, of course.
And they actually did create an album with a band called D-Rock,
Gotta listen to
and
this.
it's titled Oblivion.
Nice. Oh my goodness, that sounds amazing. I wonder
I
if
did
they
enjoy
still have,
finding that.
I wonder if they still have that record label working.
Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
assuming like it doesn't. I don't think it
guess 'cause,
costs them
like-
much to just keep the name
Yeah.
and the company.
And I
going.
guess like they do make their own like
Scores.
trailer. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, okay, fair enough. TV and movie adaptions. There was a movie that GW made directly. It was released in 2010 called Ultramarines. But
yeah,
there-
it never made it to theaters. It was
No.
directly to DVD, so that's probably why you didn't see it.
But-
There's controversy about the quality of that film.
10 out of 10. Watch it every night before you go to bed. Yeah. But 40K is becoming super prominent now. So there's actually a big deal going on with, I forget which company's making the show, but it's a show called Inquisitor. And it's coming out onto like major streaming platforms.
Is
or
it
whatever.
called Inquisitor?
It's about Inquisitor Eisenhower. I don't know what it's called actually.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called.
I don't
either.
know.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
done.
It's in the works. Very early.
It's done by
stages,
the guy
so-
who did High Man in the Castle, which is a very like well known,
Man in
well
the Tall
done.
Castle.
Yeah,
Whatever. It's
Man in
called.
the High Castle.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so it's going to be pretty wild. They're also doing a bunch of their own, like, I think it's going to be web comics. They're working on a bunch of stuff right now.
Yeah,
for
they're
TVs. and
They're like
movies.
releasing some kind of web series
Yeah.
based on a Space Marine group,
Yeah.
a chapter of Space Marines.
Yeah.
But that's like their official stuff.
Yeah.
Even then, though, like if you search YouTube or Google, you'll find so many fan-made.
and high quality.
Some of them are.
fan-made.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
so
some good
many
ones out
like
there.
movies out there of people's like Space Marines or
Yeah.
Xenos races or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a couple specifically that are so good though that like I know they've gotten people into the hobby just because of how good those
Yeah. Yeah.
are. So,
Astartes.
yeah.
Yeah.
that
So
one specifically. Yeah.
I did write down actually, like I think the best one that I've ever seen is Astartes.
Yeah, it's just like, what, maybe 15-minute long.
Less than that. It's got to be under 10 minutes.
But
just
it's
5
so
different
well done,
videos.
yeah.
Yeah. It's by this guy named Syama Peterson. Had to actually search for that to find out. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just this quick little, super well done action sequence, really.
Yeah.
There's
But yeah,
how
it-
much dialogue in a couple lines.
It goes to
but-
show you that I think that like people get really into the universe and they just love being in it, whether that's
Yeah.
creating it
Yeah.
or playing in it or painting in it or reading the novels in it. There's just something that's very magnetic about 40K.
Yeah. 40K has also made a bunch of like non-war games, so non-tabletop board games and role-playing games as well. So they've released some 12 board games,
Including
which-
Monopoly.
Yeah, like they have a Monopoly game. They got a bunch of crazy
Yeah,
stuff.
so they have like some real ones, and then they also have reskins. So the reskins, they have like a Warhammer 40,000 Munchkins, they have a Monopoly, and I think there's a Risk coming out. I don't even think it's out yet, but it's in the works. But then they also have role-playing games as well as other just board games that are on their own systems. Yeah, so the role-playing ones actually we've dabbled with.
Yeah.
They were licensed by a company, Fantasy Flight Games. and
Yeah.
I think there's 5 books out or something.
5 different games that they've made. 5,
Yeah.
yeah. And
All-
then
all
each
in
one has
40K.
probably like 20, 30 plus expansion packs or whatever.
Yeah,
but-
it's quite extensive even.
Oh, yeah.
And what's nice is those books seem to have a very good understanding of the 40K universe.
Yeah, they have so much like cool little details in the books that just flesh out the universe more and more. And,
there have been sometimes like I've enjoyed those publications, and they're not like official Games Workshops, right?
Yeah.
They're done by a different company, but I've enjoyed those more than some Games Workshop publications I've seen.
Yeah, they're very cool. But even GW, they've made their own role-playing game called
Warhammer 40,000.
Wrath and Ruin.
Oh.
Anyways. So the biggest thing, most people know 40K for tabletop role play or war gaming. So the original purpose of Warhammer 40K, the tabletop aspect, has grown and changed much since its creation. GW recently released their 9th edition of 40K in 2020 and currently supports 21 different factions with model ranges and rules that are constantly being evaluated and updated for competitive play. Yeah, that's... Yeah.
I mean, I wrote it
perfectly
but do I agree with it?
In all things. But yeah, like the tabletop is how I got into it. I never would have read a book, or I probably would have played a video game maybe. But for me, that's the big thing. For a lot of people, that's the big thing is tabletop wargaming. You have these miniatures that you build, you paint, you build your army, and then you actually roll dice and play games with people.
Yeah, and I think like for some reason it just bleeds itself into building narratives for your guys.
Yeah.
You start to just have attachments to your
Sergeant,
armies.
Yeah. You got Sergeant Johnson over there who has never died in any games, and he always turns out to be this hero character and stuff.
Yeah.
And so yeah, then you start writing a little backstory like, oh, why is this guy so good? You know?
I think like a lot of what they do, they seem very related, and it's like, oh, you want to like model and paint? Well, at the same time, throw on some 40K music.
Sure.
Right?
Or
like
a TV show.
Yeah, exactly. Or something on there that's also just another aspect of 40K. So I think you can consume a lot of it in tandem with each other, which really helps, I think.
I guess another big thing that we never talked about too is just podcasts, man. Like if you're painting, I don't know how many Warhammer podcasts there are.
You know what?
There's probably hundreds.
There's an
of them.
official Games Workshop one too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, the Voxcast.
Yeah.
Where they talk about it. And they do their official like painting guides online, and man, it used to be in these little magazines.
Like if you want to expand it out, there's so much content on the internet related to this hobby. It's crazy.
It's madness. So no matter what you're into, I think there honestly is a spot for everyone in 40K. Whether you like reading, go read books. If you like video games, go play their books. You know, there is something. Yeah, go play books. You know,
I play books so good.
I've read. I know how it works. I know how these things work. But yeah, there really is something for everybody. I get asked a lot, like, oh, how do you introduce new people to 40K? I'm like, well, just be sneaky about it. Like, if you see your friends reading a book, go sneak them a book, you know? Like, there's something for everyone. There really is. If you kind of enjoy this setting.
You need to enjoy the setting.
You gotta enjoy the setting, which...
Yeah.
But the thing is, the setting is still quite broad. So there probably is a room for a lot of people.
For people that are like, I love
romance. Peace and romance.
Like,
Love can bloom, Eric. Love can bloom.
There's Gilliman and Yvonne.
Yeah.
Romance. It's just a meme. It's not real.
Oh, it's real.
We've seen it.
Xenos and human relationships aren't real. They can't hurt you. That's what my psychiatrist said.
So for me, we're going to talk about what 40K is for us. It's a big part of all of our lives. It's a weird thing to say, but we've done a lot of 40K, the three of us. I know me and James are good friends because of 40K. Like, that's how we met. I can say that with a lot of people. So for me, I've been doing 40K for nearly 20 years, and it's always been a way to just hang out with people while still having something to do or talk about. It's a social thing, definitely, for me. What first got me into 40K in the first place, though, was the setting. I just love the grimdark. There's the setting. Nothing matters. I'm pretty nihilistic in life. Like, I don't act like it, but my core belief is nothing matters. And it's a good reminder that you got to try to make things better. Otherwise, you're going to end up like 40K in this bleak, dark place. So even though I don't believe anything matters, I'm going to try to make a better world so we don't end up like 40K. So that's nice for me. Another thing I really enjoy about 40K is how it's allowed me to show off and expand my creativity, from story writing to painting, or even just learning how to accept a crushing defeat by James better. One day I'll get good at it, but probably not.
At accepting defeat?
At accepting defeat.
You just have to get defeated more, I think.
Yeah, because I'm not going to beat the
play more
players.
games.
It won't happen. But
Yeah.
and the other big thing is just doing Lorehammer. It's opened up a whole new aspect of 40K to me. Just being able to talk to a bunch of different people, talk about 40K. But yeah, like it's been a huge thing in my life for like 20 years. It's an odd thing. But yeah, I use it for social interactions mostly. A little outlet for creativity. Figuring out the best way to paint things. I'm starting to enjoy that. So.
Yeah.
What do you like about 40K? What's 40K to you?
So for me, 40K is a very versatile hobby. So there's this is pretty much what the episode is, but there's so many ways to enjoy it, from novels to modeling to wargaming, just to discussions.
Yeah.
You can be alone, you can be in groups of hundreds of people at conventions or tournaments, and you can consume 40K in all the variety of going up to that amount. And so the grittiness of the universe, I think, is like really fun to explore. If only because, life isn't comparable to that.
Yeah,
my life isn't that gritty,
No.
so I like to explore that in my mind only, not in real life.
Yeah.
I don't want to physically experience it.
No.
So I'm a big fan of world building and storytelling, and 40K has created like a pretty open universe.
Yeah.
And there's just enough structure in it that it feels like whatever I create just isn't silly or ridiculous. And I think that's one of the nice things of having other people who are also invested in like the setting, is that you bounce ideas off of them. So I might create something that I think is awesome, and then I go to someone else and I share it, and they're like, well, that's ridiculous because of this, and this. And, and then you get to redraw it and go back and try and find out like, okay, what's a way around this? And so I like that aspect.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. One of the most enjoyable parts to me, though, is like sharing what you've created. Like, there's nothing better than pulling out a model and being like, look at this. Mm-hmm. Look at this. And you just shove it in other people's faces until they tell you that it's great. And then you leave, So, but it's, you ever hear the joke? It's like people don't wear makeup to impress like other people. They wear makeup to impress their friends who also wear makeup. Right? Or like a guy, I like to say like a guy, like your motorcycle, you have a loud motorcycle, but nobody around you who doesn't have a motorcycle, they have no idea what any of that means. But someone who has a motorcycle will appreciate the motorcycle.
Are you saying people appreciate your paint jobs? But they
No. I'm saying that,
but only a select few.
I'm saying that it's what's nice about doing the hobby with other people. Because like doing the hobby solo isn't nearly as fun in my mind, because the only people who will really appreciate the time that you put into converting something awesome and the research you put into creating the story are other people who are in the hobby with you.
Oh yeah, my wife does not understand anything I've ever done in this.
Yeah, but also has no care to.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like that's the difference, is that I can share my shit with people who have no idea, and they just be like, maybe thumbs up, maybe stare at me like I'm weird, but other people who are in the hobby are willing to engage about it.
Oh, sweet! I seen how you cut that arm off.
Yeah, like, what's that model from?
How'd you paint
what's that
from? Yeah.
And so that's what I think is one of the best parts, is sharing it with people who are just as passionate and like the hobby just as much as you. So because if you didn't have
people
that,
out there like that.
Yeah, and if you didn't have it, I probably wouldn't be in the hobby, because is not to the same degree. You can't, I don't think I could model and paint in hobby if I didn't have other people that I could constantly share with. So that's probably one of my favorite parts, is having the ability to bounce stuff off of other people.
Yeah. Timothy?
Sure. For me, like, I've been on the hobby by far the least out of the three of us. So I think it's now been about almost 3 years now. But I never was very good at doing crafty things, and so learning to paint and learning to model and doing all that was it took me a long time to get anywhere near okay at it, and still have a lot way to go. But the improvement, watching yourself improve, is something that's super.
Yeah, and it's a
super
weird
great.
thing. Like painting, I honestly think unless you have the craziest shaky drunk hands, I think anyone can actually paint a model that you can be proud of.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Well, even if you
I think even if you have shaky drunk hands and you paint a model, you can still be
Yeah,
proud
you just
got
gotta
to
find a model that is like a lot of dry brushing, so that way you'll
you should just be proud of what you do,
Oh,
regardless
yeah, sure.
of
Well,
what your
yeah.
limitations
either
are.
way, like you can, it's just something to be getting better at. That's fun. I also like the social aspect too, because like just playing games is fun, meeting new people that I would have never met before.
Yeah.
The other thing too is I like the competitive aspect of playing games. Like, I think I probably will be shifting into trying to do tournaments once they start happening again. I think I'll
That's awesome.
want to join that scene. So we'll see how well I do. Probably
Yeah.
not well, but I'll,
one of the requirements for winning, and that's playing Primaris. So
well, I got one for two, I guess. Anyways, I like the game aspect. I think the most. I think it makes putting all the effort into painting and building worth it when you get to see all them on the table and play with them. So yeah, like I'd say those are the main things for me.
Definitely like the game and painting your hobby and increasing that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably where I get most of my enjoyment from it. And this funny thing is all three of us had very different answers, which is
That's kind of just cool because it shows that all of us are here for different reasons, but we all find that common ground. And
Christian, if he was here, he was supposed to be, but he was sick. Like, he doesn't really paint. He doesn't play, but he loves just reading the lore and stuff. He doesn't read novels, but like
no, that's not his main goal. His main goal is to just buy models.
he likes
He
buying.
loves spending money on 40K.
Yes, okay, yeah, he likes spending but never doing. But
yeah,
like that's one way to be a 40K guy, I guess.
Yeah,
just spend your money.
Having a giant pile of gray plastic that's some man's
just
dream.
boxes and boxes. A lot of it's probably still plastic wrapped too.
Oof.
But yeah, it just goes to show you that you can consume 40K anyway, as long as you accept the story for what it is.
Sure.
So.
It has its flaws. There's some glaring ones, but I think you just got to look past some things every now and again, I always try to keep in mind, this could have been written 30 years ago, this little bit of lore here. That's why it doesn't make sense, but that's life. So that's the episode. I hope you guys got kind of a good understanding of the basics of 40K, so your friend, when they're rambling at you about it, you might know now. Maybe we did a better job explaining it than they did. They could have just been yelling and screaming at you like, and then the Space Marines were charging? Who knows? Chainswords were fleeing it? I don't know. I've had some weird 40K conversations.
Yikes.
Yeah, I've had a lot.
Well, when you've been around it for that long.
Yeah. So go check out some things. I don't know. Go find what you're interested in. If you like reading, go read a book. Go read a 40K book.
Find also a community, I think, is like a really big thing. If there's a hobby store near you, if you want to get into the games, like most local gaming stores are like very good about creating communities and like groups of people who play together and model together and interact with each other. So
and
I think that's
if you can't
like
find
really
one
good.
locally, join the Lorehammer community. We got our own Discord. You can go on there. We're talking to everybody. You can send us a message, show us what you're working on, tell us what book you just read, whatever. I can be your community.
Yikes.
I am community now.
Look at me. Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Our next episode, I'm not sure what we're doing. It's going to be an Imperium episode, I'm pretty sure. Might not be.
Well, there's a lot of Imperium out there, so
Yeah.
Might be Imperium, might not be. It's one of those two.
yeah, everything is either Imperium or not Imperium. So
That's true.
So
That is a tautology right there.
cool. Well, the Imperial Tithe.
Yeah. Go support us on Patreon if you like what we're doing. Send us a couple bucks. This is a list of everyone who's already thought what we've done is worthwhile. So
yeah. So
here's our new patrons.
thank you to Alexander, Mel, Thomas, Parker, Uppy, Nene Skachow,
Yes, sir.
Astrid, Matt, Snowden, Moises, Kane, Logue, Cameron, Bill, Humphrey, Frogman Savage, Lucas, Scott, the Mustard Tiger, Logan,
Mustard Tiger.
Logan, Yount, Calm Exit, Magos Logos Carulius, Tessier, Hunt, Johansson, James, but not this James.
Names.
Mango the
Alan
Destroyer, Hunter, McEwen, Sistema, Richard, Fernstrom, Joshua, Jay, Daniel, Only, Adam, Gideon, Marlos, Dragon Shield, Daniel, Cryptic Zrin, Dolly, Daniel, Michael, Crunk, Smash,
Yeah.
Kudelski, Maxi, and Davenport.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for contributing, guys.
It's crazy.
Supporting the show. It's awesome.
Means a lot.
Means a lot.
Okay, so that's this episode. Go show your friends, you regular listeners. Go give this to your friends. Send out links to everyone in your contacts. Grandma, check this podcast out. Stuff like that. Grandma, go listen.
Yeah. Grandma likes to craft. She'll be right in there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true.
Okay, I'll leave you with one final saying. If we're in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Yeah. There you go.
All right, guys. We'll see you on our next episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, hello and welcome back to Lorehammer. My name is Eric.
My name is James. I'll be hosting today.
Okay.
Wow.
Welcome.
Okay.
Welcome
Well,
to
I'm
my
Mark.
garage.
Your garage. Hold on here.
I don't know how to start this now. I feel like
I got
James
questions.
is-
Well, I'd like
I
to
want to know how long he's been living in my garage for
I want
one.
to welcome you guys to my podcast. It's always great having you guys on. You always have like good personalities, keep the chat going in a good direction. So always a pleasure to have you guys back on. And
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. Like obviously not anytime because
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's my podcast.
Like come over anytime, but call before you come.
Of course,
over,
of course.
Give me some.
You never know what I'm gonna be doing on the couch over there.
Yeah. Give me the opportunity to say no.
Yeah, let me put my pants on at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
I can always take them off.
Okay.
All right. Well.
Moving right on from that.
But you're not living in my garage, though, just to clarify.
I'll confirm or deny. I will do neither.
Okay. Welcome to Lorehammer.
This is the quality you come to expect and love.
Welcome to Lorehammer.
You can cut that whole beginning part and just start here if you want.
We will.